What is up, y'all? It's your girl Lena back for another video, and in this one we'll be diving into the 5 things you need to know all around this upcoming August 27th new moon in the grounding sign of Virgo. We'll dive into why this can be a powerful time to getting into the nitty-gritty of the details of how do we actually actualize some of our bigger goals? How do we get into the specifics of it? What does it look like to reverse engineer it? What does it look like to be in action? But with that said, let's dive in. Why is this moon important? As many of y'all know, the new moon marks the beginning of a new lunar cycle, where we see the moon essentially disappears in the sky as it is no longer reflecting the sun's light. And it's during this time that we often see people doing new moon rituals, where they write out and get specific about the intentions that they have for the next lunar cycle ahead. Now, these can be brand new intentions or pre-existing ones, where we take the time to reflect upon what worked and didn't work in the previous lunar cycle. That way we can be more clear and specific on ways to pivot, redirect moving forward. And just as we see the light build in the sky leading up to its peak at the full moon, so too can the momentum around the intentions that we set at this time build. The new moon is seen as this cosmic reminder that new starts are normal, new phases are normal in our lives, and we have this 28-day cycle to kickstart, pivot, try something different. And just having that reminder is really beautiful to me, because oftentimes in life we can kind of be like, this is just how I am, you know? But we see in nature there are phases, there are seasons, there are cycles, and that happens in our own lives as well. Now let's specifically talk about Virgo new moons. So in general, Virgo is represented by the Virgin Goddess. Now, the Virgin Goddess is this symbol of wholeness, this all-encompassing being that doesn't need anything outside of herself. So during this time, during this new moon, there really is this theme of wholeness, of looking within oneself for the answers, of exploring our own wisdom to seek the insights that we need. Virgo new moons offer us a lot of energetic support when it comes to nourishing oneself, pouring into one's cup. That way, when we want to tap in and listen to our mind, body, and soul, we can easily tap in and align with it. Another aspect of Virgo new moons is that we can have or experience heightened abilities when it comes to precision, exactness, and attention to detail. We can feel more grounded in who we are, have more clarity around what we do and don't want. Again, Virgo is really this representation and this energetic aspect of wholeness, of understanding ourselves on a deeper grounded level. Now, on one side, this is beautiful. We can find more clarity in those areas of what we do and don't want. But the flip side to that, especially when it comes to relationships or collaborative things, is that sometimes that can show up as rigidity or being too in our own lane or too in our own way, to the point that we aren't open or more fluid or more airy, bring in those elements when it comes to collaborations and staying open-minded. But overall, this new moon is a beautiful time to be in nature, to really regulate our energy, right? And finally, like mentioned before, ideas when it comes to the specificities about actualizing our goals can flow a lot better during this time. Later on in the video, I'll break down a few practical ways that we can take advantage of this. Next up, what transits impact this moon? So first up, we see the sun and moon currently in Virgo squaring off with Mars, which is currently in Gemini. Now, a square aspect in astrology generally indicates a heightened level of challenges or friction between the astral bodies involved. And when we see a transit like this, where we see Mars is really active during this new moon, really squaring off with the sun, really impacting our outer world, how we present ourselves to the world, our ego, and the moon, our inner world. So really having that friction with both aspects, both sides of the coin of our inner and outer world, we can often see it highlight or spotlight aspects of ourselves that we might have held back from the world, or we might have stifled out of fear or insecurity. Aspects of ourselves or our personality or things that we've wanted to do that we've been holding ourselves back from. That's a big aspect of the moon squaring off with Mars relative to our inner world. And when it comes to our outer world, when we see Mars squaring off with the sun, we can often see more anger, frustration when it comes to interacting with different people, feeling like we might not have gotten what we wanted to across to one another, misinterpreting things, and essentially having a more sensitive ego sometimes during this. With this type of transit, we can also sometimes see roadblocks when it comes to us and leadership positions, us and work, us and outer structures in our lives. And we see this partially because, Mars is this planet of dominance, courage, initiative, passion, ego. And so we're having this friction with all of those areas of our lives. Now, with that said, I want to remind y'all, one, this is just a forecast, right? It's how we act, react, preemptively act in response to learning this information that we can potentially even avoid some of these potential pitfalls, right? So some of the things that we can do with this knowledge and even working with Mars's energy is leaning into being courageous, leaning into pushing forward confidently with intentions that we might have for this new lunar phase. It can also be helpful to give people the benefit of the doubt, to pay attention to if we're feeling a little bit more reactive, if we notice other people being a little bit more reactive. Next up, we see Venus, which is currently in Leo, squaring off with Uranus, which is currently in Taurus. Now, as mentioned before, a square aspect can usually increase challenges and friction within the areas that the astral bodies control in our lives, right? So we see Venus, this planet of love, relationships, currently in Leo, this outgoing sign, squaring off, having this friction with Uranus, this planet of freedom, change, revolution. Now, when we see a transit like this, some of us can feel confined, feeling like we want to break free, have more fun, excitement in our lives, wanting a change of pace. And because this involves Venus, this can likely show up within relationships, whether they're brand new, wanting to have a really exciting new date, or you have a pre-existing relationship and you want to try new things. And a note that I want to make for newer relationships is to tread lightly. This is a type of transit where you might meet new people, or you might be feeling more hot and heavy, more passionate at the beginning, but there might be a higher likelihood that it can burn out too soon. So tread lightly, take things in a steady manner, and enjoy the passion, enjoy that heightened nature in whatever relationship you might be in. Just take heed. And finally, we see Venus opposing Saturn. Now, when we see an opposition aspect, it often indicates heightened duality and polarity between the astral bodies involved. Now, this can bring in heightened tension, but that tension can be a strong catalyst for change. It can be a strong highlight in our lives, kind of like a spotlight into how and where we need to find more balance between those two themes. Now, when we see a transit like this, sometimes we can experience more loneliness or frustration because there might be a pushback or some type of delay when it comes to our love lives or finances. Things within the realms of our second house when it comes to structure, order, materials, and things like that. And aspects of our love lives, aspects of our relationships where there might be some type of delay or some type of obstacle. And this is because we see Venus, this planet of love and relationships, currently in this outgoing sign of Leo, having this opposition with Saturn, this planet of maturity, accountability, responsibility, things like that. And so during this type of transit, we're really being asked to strike a balance between romanticizing things, romanticizing our lives, certain people, having rose-colored glasses over our finances and how we operate in that realm, and striking that balance with practicality, the reality of the situation, the actual numbers, the actual actions of that individual, rather than romanticizing them. And striking a balance there, because if we lean too much to one side where we're too practical, too rigid, too grounded even, sometimes it can take the fun out of things, right? And so striking a balance with that is really going to be a theme during this new moon when it comes to our love lives and finances, when we see this type of transit between Venus and Saturn. All right, next up, ways to align with this energy. First up, when it comes to potential frustrations or anger or anything like that that might come up during this time, especially because we see Mars playing a big role during this new moon, it'll be very helpful to try to stop and tap into where that stems from. Next up, staying open-minded to loved ones. Again, this Vigo, what did I just say? This Venus Saturn energy is really, I'm seeing a lot of themes around seeing things for what they are, seeing loved ones for who they are in their perfectly imperfect lives. Next up, in terms of a new moon ritual, it will be helpful to focus on setting intentions and just really reflecting on things that of Virgo. So those are things that include nourishing ourselves and others, really caring for the body, tapping into the mind, body, and soul for wisdom and insight on how to care for ourselves, getting into the specifics of our intentions, how we're going to actualize it. Let's now dive into the new moon writing prompts. What I'm gonna do is I will put the prompts up on the screen. When you see them, I invite you to pause the video, write them out, and then at the end, we'll come back. And if you have your Auralign Astrology Planner, which is also currently on sale for only $5 because we're making way for the 2023 line, you can go ahead and flip to the dedicated new moon ritual page within your planner, and you can just write it out there. Moving into this new lunar cycle, do you have any new intentions or goals? When was the last time you actualized, achieved, or obtained a big goal of yours? How did you do it? Over the last month, how have you been nourishing and caring for your body? All right, y'all, I'm gonna go ahead and end the video here. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to comment what might have come up for you. Have you been seeing any themes around balancing, wanting to romanticize certain situations relative to our relationship, finances, structure, material things, and the reality of it, the complexity or nuance of it? What makes you feel most grounded in your mind, body, and or soul? You know, I wanna hear about it. Comment down below. And if you don't wanna comment that, just comment 3 tree emojis, because the tree really represents as above, so below. We really see the branches up top mirrored in the roots down below. It's a whole being, right? Whole and grounded in itself. And that's really what we're working to embody during this Virgo new moon. But with all of that said, I will say toodaloo. I'll go ahead and end with my favorite quote, and that is, be gentle with yourself, because life is about the journey. Really is, and not the destination. I really felt that one today. All right, I'll see y'all in the next one. Comment down below, I'm gonna be replying. And that's it, yeah. Peace, love y'all.